Hey y'all, so today I'm going to go over how to download stuff with Bittorrent or with torrent files. And you can download basically anything with them. Anything that can be downloaded, any file or software or whatever. But I'll start out by giving sort of a disclaimer. I'm not saying that people should go out and download movies or music or adult videos or cracked software or cracked video games or any of the things that you can download. You shouldn't, because it's probably illegal and immoral and whatever. What I'll say is this: if you do go and download, like, say a new album from an artist that you like, and and it's good and you enjoy it, maybe you should consider going and actually buying the thing. But with that said, torrent and BitTorrent, they're not inherently bad or negative, or there's not an inherent problem with it. It's simply a way to send files to other people or to share files. And the bit in BitTorrent you may recognize because it's the same suffix used on Bitcoin. And the idea with BitTorrent is it's decentralized. So which is a common theme that you'll hear with Bitcoin as well. So with BitTorrent, what it is the file that you're trying to download, whatever it is, or files, is broken down into a bunch of little pieces. And so let's say that I download, for instance, a Linux distribution that's totally free and can be downloaded. When I download it, I get the one file, but when I'm sharing it, the program breaks it into a bunch of little files. And a whole bunch of other people have those same files. And so when you go to download something on BitTorrent, you tell the program to download it, and the torrent file itself, or the magnet, which is just basically a URL, the link, will point to all of those files, and it will get it from whoever it can. So if 10 people have a copy of Ubuntu Linux, you can pull it from all 10 people at one time, and it'll pull it in parts. And with that in mind, there's no centralized server that BitTorrent uses. It uses all of the people who are sharing it and their devices and their internet connections and everything. And so that's kind of where the bit suffix makes sense for BitTorrent. And with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ledger is decentralized. Everybody who's using Bitcoin has that ledger, essentially. There's more to it than that, but I'll just keep it kind of basic. So the common thing that people think of when they think of using torrents is BitTorrent, the program. And so you can go to Google and just do BitTorrent download. And the first thing that you'll find is this right here. And you can download one of these and use it, and they're fine. I personally don't like BitTorrent. There used to be ads in there. I don't know if there still are. But it always felt a little large and clunky and slow. And so the one that I use is called Transmission. So you would type in transmission download, and the first thing will bring you to this page. And you can see that it's available for Mac OS 10.10 or later, Windows 7 or later, or Linux. There's a whole bunch of Linux distributions that have it. And what's nice with transmission, and what I do with it, is I've actually got a transmission, it's called a transmission daemon running on my server. And then all of my computers inside the house are networked with that. So when I use transmission, I'm actually using transmission remote, but it looks exactly the same as transmission, as the normal BitTorrent software. But I'm connected to my server, and it's actually when I tell transmission remote to download something, it is then telling the server to download that thing. And that way I don't have 8 or 10 different computers all downloading different things at different times. I have one computer that's controlled by any one of those. I can just open up transmission remote on anything and start the downloading. And there's even an Android app and probably an iOS app. I'm not sure about iOS actually, but there's an Android app where I can download when I'm in my local network. I can start a download on anything right from my phone, but my server will download it instead of my phone. However, if you download transmission, it basically looks the same. Now the view, I've got the view changed a little bit, because normally when you turn it on, when you install it the first time, it'll show the info pane, this thing down here, and it will show the filter pane, so this and this, and I turn those off because I don't really care about that stuff. But this is where all of your files would be that you're downloading, and I'll show that in a couple of minutes. So I would recommend going to Transmission and downloading whichever one you need and installing it. You can ignore the remote part. That's something that I do. If you've got a server, you probably shouldn't be watching this channel anyways. You probably know more than me. But if you download and install, this is probably the one that you need, or this if you're running Mac, but you probably want x64. Though x86 should run on your Windows 7 or 10 machine, even if it is 64-bit. The 64 version is made for it, so I would suggest that. And basically, once you've got that up and running, it will, once you tell it what torrents to download, it will download those files to your local machine. And so with that in mind, there's a couple of settings that you might want to change. So these are settings that are actually connected, that are for my server. So on my server, I have a folder called Bittorent, and then inside of that folder, I have a folder called Completed, and that's where everything goes. You may want to change this default folder. Again, this is on a remote host, so it'll look slightly different. But I think the default for Transmission is that it downloads into your Downloads folder. You might want to change that. And you might want to change some other things. So for instance, I always do stop seeding when inactive for 1 minute. The idea is I am selfish and I want to download the files, but I don't want to share them out and waste my upload internet connection because I'm doing other things like YouTube videos and whatever. And yeah, some people get upset about that, but whatever, who cares? So I will download it but not upload much. The other thing to remember is that oftentimes internet service providers in different countries, it depends on the provider in the country, they don't tend to care as much about people that are downloading. They care about people that are sharing, in other words, uploading. And so if you're uploading a lot, you're going to be a target for an ISP. Whereas if you're downloading a lot, they might send you like some warning letters or whatever, at least that's what they used to do in the US, but they're less apt to try and pull some kind of legal maneuver. Let me see here. There's a couple of other things that you may want to select. I leave this all the same. In bandwidth, I will limit the maximum upload speed, and I think 10 is as low as I can go. So that, again, it's not sharing much, and then after a minute it turns off what it's sharing as well. It'll stop seeding it or sharing it. And again, that way I'm not uploading much, but I don't limit the download speed. And then for queue, so the queue size is how many things you can be downloading at one time. And I think by default it's set for like, I don't know, 5 or 10. I bump it up to 15. Now you might think, why don't I bump it up to the maximum of 2,000 things? The problem is, if I have that set to the maximum and I start 100 downloads, all of those downloads might be able to run at the same time, but since they're all running, they'll all take a super long time. If you have them run, say, 5 or 10 at a time, then those 10 will download, they'll finish, and then the next 10 will start, they'll finish. Well, I shouldn't say that. Once one of them stops, the next one in the line, the number 11 in your queue will start. And then so on. When the second one ends, finishes, the 12th one will start. And that way, rather than taking a ton of time to download a ton of things, it takes a small amount of time to download some things, and you still end up getting them all. It just sort of orders them so that you get some of the stuff a little bit earlier. And you can change the queue and everything. You can change the upload queue size, but I just leave it where it is. And then I think there are some other options. Now again, your tools menu will look slightly different because you're not using the remote one. You're using the standard Transmission one. A couple of things. I always do delete the .torrent file after successful addition. So in order to make this work, which I'll show in a moment, you can start a download in one of two ways. Either you click a magnet link, or you copy paste it to here, or you download a torrent file and open that torrent file with Transmission. And once I've opened the file with Transmission, I no longer need the torrent file. It's useless to me. The program knows where those bits of the file are. They can get it. It will continue to run until it's gotten all of those files. And so I don't need to keep the file for any reason, and so I delete it. And then also, I have automatically add torrent links from the clipboard, because oftentimes what I'll do is right click and do copy link on like a magnet link. And if I do that, it will automatically add it to transmission so that I don't have to go into the program and manually add it. And I'll show you that in just a moment. And then this other one, prompt for download options when adding a new torrent. So that's, I think, checked by default. And so when you add a torrent, it'll pop up a box and say, where do you want to save it? How long do you want to share it? Blah, blah. It'll basically ask you a bunch of these options for each and every single file. And I don't want that. That's annoying. You can have one set of default options that applies to every file, and then uncheck this so that it does not ask you that stuff and waste your time. And where that becomes a problem is, especially if you've got a list of files you want to download, you want to just click, 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 click. But it's going to pop up a box, a menu for each and every one. And so you click the first one. If you don't address that and select the things in the menu, it won't let you click the second one. It'll take forever. It's a waste. So I would uncheck the download options thing, but I would check these two. Is there anything else? And system integration, I would check handle .torrent files and handle magnet links by transmission. Yours won't say remote. Meaning that it makes this program the default torrent program for any .torrent files or for any magnet links. And that way it doesn't pop up and say, what program would you like to open this file with? It just automatically opens it in transmission. I think that's basically it, but let me double check. That's stuff for my server that you won't see. And the rest of the stuff doesn't matter too much. Now, there's one other really neat feature, and it's this little turtle here. It says use alternate bandwidth settings. You will have an alternate bandwidth settings option in your settings. I can't show them to you because they're on the server, but basically, let's say that you normally will allow transmission to use all of your download bandwidth to download something and all of your upload bandwidth to share it. Let's just say that you haven't changed it. You'll allow transmission to use all of your data from your internet. If you're downloading something, but then you need to start a Google Meets meeting, or you want to do something else, or even just send an email or open a web page, it would cause problems with those other programs. So these alternate settings can drop down the maximum speed. And so down here you see download, the max speed is unlimited. And for me, I have upload, the max speed set at 10 kilobytes per second. If I click this little turtle here, you see it changes. So the maximum download speed is about 1.5 megabytes per second. Now I know that I can get pretty reliably about 8.5 megabytes per second total for all the stuff that I'm doing, like total throughput through my modem. And so if I'm trying to have a class, like with my students, and I'm downloading stuff, I'll click that turtle and it limits the download speed so that now, and you can have it limit the upload speed as well, so that now I'm only using, say, 2 megabytes per second, and the other 6 megabytes of possible available bandwidth I can use for Google Meet to have my class, or I can send an email, or I can do whatever I want to do with it. Now this is the speed out of your home network to the internet, to other users. It's got nothing to do with your internal network. It's got nothing to do with your internal network speeds, which are going to be much higher. So at any rate, normally I have that unchecked because usually I may have 5 or 10 things downloading at one time. But because of the number of users, this is the other thing, you won't get max throughput on every file. If a file is not popular or not common, if hardly anyone has it, you might only get a few kilobits per second of speed. And the reason is because that's all that you can get from the people who are sharing it. That's sort of the downside of it being decentralized and not coming from a server, is that the speeds are inconsistent. But if it's something that's very popular or very new, if we're talking about media, usually it comes in quite quickly. And I've had situations plenty of times where one single file will totally saturate my internet bandwidth. So if I can get 8 megabytes per second, there may be a new movie or a TV show that I legally download, of course. And when I start it downloading, it might totally wipe out my internet. But then it only takes 15 seconds to download the whole thing, and then I've got it, and I'm done. When you're done with these, which you'll see the list, I'll download a copy of Ubuntu. When you're done with them, you can right-click and remove them. The other thing you can do is you can change the queue. You can move items to the top of the queue or the bottom of the queue, and you can change the priority to high, medium, or low. So if you've got something that you want, say you've got 10 things downloading, or 10 things in your list, and 5 of them are downloading, and you want the thing at the bottom of the list to download next, in the next available spot, you would right-click that thing, do queue, and do move to top. And then, whenever one of those first 5 things finishes downloading, the next thing to start downloading is the one that you chose to move to the top of the queue. So anyways, that's basically all there is to the program. Again, yours is slightly different because yours won't be transmission remote, it'll just be transmission. But it's going to look basically the same. So that's the Bittorrent client. The next question is, how do you get the torrents? Where do you get the torrent files or the magnet files? So let's download Ubuntu. Again, I'm not going to tell you where to download things from. That would be immoral. Oops, this isn't the web page that I wanted to go to. I don't know what this is. I'm not sure what this one is either. This is not the website for downloading Ubuntu. Also, this one isn't. Something to note, though, too, is obviously with viruses and stuff, you have to be careful. If you download something from someone, you don't know what's in there. There might be viruses. There might be, especially if it's software, and especially if there are cracks. Sometimes the software is not the latest version. Not that I would know from experience, but I've heard it from other people. So when you download something, if your, say, Windows Defender or your antivirus says it's got a virus, you might want to just delete it, especially if you don't really know what you're doing. And with software, there's oftentimes cracks that need to be done. And if you mess up that crack, the software won't work. It's a real headache. So again, don't illegally download music software or anything else. This too is not the website I was looking for. This appears to be some sort of movie website. I'm not sure what kind of movie website it is, but it's not the one that I wanted. I was trying to find Ubuntu. Oh, there we are. Okay, so Ubuntu is a version of Linux. It's free, it's open source, and you can download it. And you can just do regular, normal downloads. So like I can just click this button and start downloading Ubuntu. But I can also download it on their alternative downloads page using Bittorrent. So that's what I'm going to do. So Bittorrent, peer-to-peer download network, sometimes enables higher download speeds and more reliable downloads of large files. You need a Bittorrent client to enable this. So the client is transmission. Now if I want to download one of these things, let's say I want the newest version of Ubuntu, click it. Now you see in this case it downloaded the torrent file. So you can see this is the torrent file right here. Now if I just click it, that's the same thing as running it. Or if I double click it, it's the same thing as running it. So let's do that. When I double click it, it opens up here. And then you see it automatically deleted it. I can get rid of it from here. Let me see if there's another one. Did I spell that correctly? Maybe Linux Mint. That's not what I wanted. SUSE. This isn't going to be what I wanted either. Sorry, I'm just trying to find another thing to download with Bittorrent that is not illegal. So you see this is going kind of slow, and if we look, I'm at 2.8 megabytes per second. So I might hit that snail button, and that'll slow it down. You'll see it start to come down in speed. And now it's starting to speed up the rest of my network here. Is there a torrent for Linux Mint? Download with mirrors, torrents. Now, the other thing too is you can pause things if you want to. Where is it? You can click the pause button. And then of course you can start them back up whenever you'd like. So let's see. Here's another torrent. So if I click that, this one is for Linux Mint, a different version of Linux. I'd like to find a mirror. We'll see. I think this web page is actually just straight up slow. Yeah. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'd like to find a magnet. Was there a magnet link in here? I'm not sure. Well, at any rate, so I don't see a magnet link, but magnet links are just a URL. Click this, and it adds it. Magnet links are just a URL. And if you want to, if you click the magnet link, it should open up automatically. If you right click and do copy link, it should add it automatically. The other thing you can do is do add torrent link, and you can put in either the URL of the torrent or of the magnet link. And actually, yes, you can do for the torrent as well. So let me try another one. Right click, copy link address. So now I'm not even downloading the actual file. See, I just added it, and then it didn't even show the link here, it just automatically added it there. So like I can right click and do priority and set it to high. I can right click and move it to the top of the queue, or move it up or move it down. It won't change it in the list, but it will make it the next thing to be downloaded. And then you can organize these by clicking these different things. So I'll usually have them organized by what's done or nearest to being done, so that I can turn it off as soon as it is done. And actually what you'll see is when this gets to 5%, it'll automatically change the order that it's in. The other thing is there's normally a bunch of extra things here, like upload speed. Seeds are the number of people who have the file. Peers are the number of people who have some of the file and are still trying to download it. So seeds count more than peers, but peers can get you a lot of the file downloaded, just not all of it. If a peer has all of the file, then they become a seed, and they would be in that list. So you see that these files have a lot of seeds, over 1,000, so they're going to go pretty quickly. I can turn this off, and let's see what total bandwidth we can get for that matter. And I'll start this one. Sometimes you'll have weird issues. Yeah, and you can see the, did the order change? I guess the order didn't change. What was I going to say? You'll sometimes have issues where, like, if your computer was, if the power went out and it shut off quickly, when you open this up, under status, it'll say error, and you can right click it and do force start, and usually it will download the rest of it and it won't be a problem. So at any rate, these are downloading to my server. So actually, let's see, these are downloading to here. And you see, while it's not finished, it says .part. That's an option. When it finishes, the .part will be gone and it will just be .iso. But this is where I'm downloading it to. Yours will probably, by default, be downloading to the downloads folder. And again, you can change that. You might want to change it to have it download to the desktop folder. But once it's finished, it will just simply be there, and then you can move it and do whatever you need to do with that file. So I guess that's most of it. Downloading stuff online with Bittorrent, with Torrent, is easy and it's fast if a lot of people have that file. If very few people have that file, it depends on their internet connection, but it still can be fast. I mean, I've had torrents where only a single person had it, and I was still able to get something that was, say, 2 gigabytes in a matter of a minute or two. On occasion, you'll find things where it's 2 or 3 gigabytes, and it only takes 15 or 20 seconds to get because it's so popular. And there are some times where you'll go to download something and you cannot. It never starts. It always stays at 0%. The other thing that will happen, especially if there's only 1 or 2 people that have the file, is it may start, maybe it gets up to 20 or 30%, or maybe it gets to 90%, and then it stops, and you can never get the rest of it. And basically what's happened is the person who was sharing it stopped sharing it, or turned off their computer, or turned off their BitTorrent client and walked away and didn't turn it back on. You might get that file at some point, a day, a week, a month, who knows? You might never get it again. And so it can be finicky like that. That's the downside of a decentralized peer-to-peer file sharing service. Now again, this can be used for lots of good. Ubuntu is free and open source, and they literally have the BitTorrent files on their webpage, because the nice thing for a company like Canonical, like Ubuntu, is once they've uploaded it and a few people have it, they don't need to rely as much on their own servers. It's this decentralized system that's getting it to new people. And it takes some of the cost and some of the infrastructure needs and some of the internet service needs away from the company who's trying to get their software out to people, or whatever else it is. It's not just software. Again, the downside is sometimes it can go slow, sometimes there aren't many users, and so on. But you can see, yeah, I'm around 4.9 megabytes per second. I think I said I would get around 8 before, and that was in my previous apartment. Now I'll get, the most I'll get is about 5.5. I was mistaken about that. But yeah, so with this, if I were to try to have a Google Meet thing right now, or join Zoom, it might not look very good. It might be kind of sketchy. And so just click the snail, it slows it down, and I'm back in business within 30 seconds or so. When I'm done having that meeting, click the snail again, turns it back on, goes full speed, and I'm good to go. So that's really all there is to it. Yeah, don't use it for illegal stuff unless you want to. It's not really my problem. So sorry this one was kind of long, but there's a lot of information to give. Hopefully this helps somebody. Enjoy.